Welcome to the Jamesburg Presbyterian Church. Today is Wednesday, May the 26th, 2021. So good to know that there are people already watching on Facebook. Thank you for being there. It's also good to know that there will be people watching on YouTube later on. Thank you for being a part of this audience. Thank you all. I'm always very humbled to know that people are watching me. So at the end of March, I showed you this table. I bought it from a magic store. And I was going to use it for close-up magic. That's the whole idea. It's a close-up magic table. It has a drawer in it, so I can keep the things that I'm using organized. And it's made out of Formica, very attractive Formica. This would be a nice countertop. It's probably put on plywood or a particle board. My guess would be a particle board. It's kind of heavy. But it's very attractive, and it fulfills the purpose of making me look good when I'm doing close-up magic, which I haven't done a whole lot of anyway. But anyway, there was a venue where I was performing in a magic show with a number of other magicians, and we started off the day selling tickets to get into the show, and performers use close-up stuff, so I bought this for that purpose. Got a good price on it, so it was a good deal. But one of the things I realized is that it came by just as a table, just as you see it here. It came like this, and what I realized is that bringing it into a car, out of a car, into a venue, out of a venue, into the car, out of the car, back up to where it goes on a shelf, I risk the chance of damage. And once it's damaged, it would be very hard to repair because I don't think I could match the Formica. So if I dinged it or took an edge off of it, it would be a major problem. So a major investment would be down the drain. So what I did is I built a travel case for it. So I'm going to just move this. I've built travel cases before, and I've always built them for props that I didn't want to take the risk of damaging as I was moving the prop back and forth. Travel cases keep all the parts together. In this particular case, there's a drawer. There's things in the drawer, and I didn't want those things to fall out, which could happen in my car or on the way in or out of a venue. So I built a travel case for it. This travel case is built out of, I used 3/4-inch pine for the edges. I used 1/4-inch plywood for the back. I used crafting wood for the door. I also was very deliberate in designing this. I'll show you the inside of it. The whole thing is padded in carpet padding. I knew that I couldn't use foam because of the weight of this. It would just crush the foam, and I'd be constantly replacing the foam. So when I measured the foam, found that it was about a half inch. So I added to the dimensions of the prop 1/2 inch on the sides, and then I figured I would need to be able to get my hand in, so I put 1.5 inches on the top and 1.5 inches on the bottom. So I designed the case using measurements that would work for me. I also wanted to have a shelf on the top for other kinds of things that wouldn't fit necessarily into the drawer, but things that I would want to take if I was doing close-up magic. So this is very deliberately built. I also painted the inside and the outside so that it would create a bit of a barrier for moisture. I didn't want humidity to affect the prop at all. So there's that too. And I used an oil-based paint. All of the hardware that I chose for this is brass. I wanted something that looked nice. But I constantly reminded myself that I was not building furniture. I always have to tell myself that because if this does get damaged, if the case does get scratched or gouged or dented, it's not going to be a big deal because that's the purpose of the case. The case is to take the abuse that I don't want the prop to take. This particular case is built with screws in the side. All the sides are screwed to the top and bottom, so it won't pull apart in terms of the weight that it carries. There's the back is nailed on so that there is a paneling nail. If you know what paneling nails are, they're also, each one's glued as they're first drilled and then pounded into place, and then countersunk, and then wood-filled. But each of the nails is 1 1/4 inch apart. Everything's measured so that this has the most amount of protection I can possibly give the prop so that it doesn't fall apart. So you're probably wondering why I do this. Well, it's the same reason a musician who, let's say, has a guitar, buys a hard case or a guitar that comes with a hard case to protect the prop, to protect the musical instrument. The case is there to take the abuse. The case is there to get the scratches, dings, gouges, and dents that we don't want the instrument to take. So, I've told you a little bit about this, but I haven't told you why. We are like magic props. We are like musical instruments, and we go out into the world and we risk the chance of getting gouges, dents, dings, scrapes. These may be real in terms of physical injuries. They can also be spiritual injuries. They can also be psychological injuries. The world is a very dangerous place to live. We take that for granted, just as sometimes we take magic and props for granted. We take musical instruments for granted. I don't need a hard shell case. Why go to the extra expense of buying a $200 case for my guitar when I'll be very careful? Well, the reality is you can be as careful as you want. It's still not going to protect the prop. It's still not going to protect the musical instrument. One of the props that I built a case for, I was performing with it and someone knocked it over and broke it. Irreplaceable, $400 prop that could never be replaced because there were only 100 of them made, and I can't buy any of the other 99 that survived. Don't even know who has them. So, and the person who made them had passed, so it was never going to have it. So I have a great carrying case for a prop that no longer exists. So even when we're careful, damage can come, but we can do things to minimize the damage. So my question for all of us, it's kind of rhetorical, is what carrying case are you living your life in? Now, the Apostle Paul, when he wrote to the people in Ephesus, talked about that kind of carrying case that we need to be in. He didn't call it a carrying case. What he did in chapter 6 is he said, we need to put on the armor of God. He talked about the belt, the waist belt, the breastplate, the shield, the helmet, the shoes that we wear. Of course, when we compare this to Roman soldiers, we know that all of the armor was there to protect the soldier as much as possible from injury during a battle. And so Paul used that as his illustration, but he also used it, explained each of those items in terms of a spiritual characteristic. For example, he talked about the truth. We need to be armed with the truth of God. We need to be armed with the salvation of God. We need to be armed with the readiness to proclaim. That's right, the shoes are that readiness to proclaim, according to Paul. He talked about the helmet being faith, the shield being faith, rather, the helmet being knowledge of the love of God. These are the kinds of things we need to have in our world. We need in our lives as we live in the world. We need to have that kind of protection to strengthen us in the tough times of life, to strengthen us as we face the difficulties in our world. And you don't have to look very far to see the difficulties. Is it any more dangerous today than it ever was? I don't think so. I think the dangers that exist around us are different, maybe defined in a different way, but all of nothing has really changed. The world is no more dangerous and no less dangerous today than it was 100 years ago, than it was 2,000 years ago. Just different things threaten us. So we've got, when we take for granted that we will be okay, when we take for granted that we don't need faith to get us through the tough times, we don't need the presence of God to get us through the tough times, we don't need the truth of God, knowing that God's love for us is unconditional, while the world is telling us that we are useless and worthless, knowing that God's love is there for us and that it's unconditional can strengthen us in those times of self-doubt. Having faith that God is present with us, no matter what we see, no matter what we experience in life, is very important because that strength will get us through some of the tough times that will be there. This is not speculative that we'll face tough times. We will face tough times. So think about the carrying case that you are in. Think about the instrument that you are, the magic prop that you are, and remember that there is a necessity to be clothed in the characteristics that God gives to us, the strength, the faith, the salvation, the truth. Truth is an important thing for our world today, and being ready at all times to proclaim God's love. Have your carrying case ready. Don't leave home without it. Thank you very much for watching today. I will see you on Sunday, and I will see you next Tuesday for our Bible study and next Wednesday for our next devotional. Thank you very much. Bye now.